I say education has to be totally reconstituted, including public education, to begin in the most distant past. So our young people today who know nothing about how the world was created that they inhabit, okay, can understand, okay, what marvelous, technological paradise they live in, and it's the product of capitalism, it's the product of individual innovation, most of it's the product of a Western tradition that everyone wants to trash now, etc. If you begin in the past and show, and also talk about war, because with the war is the one thing that wakes people up. Okay. When you have the reality of war, when people see the reality of the horrors of war, Berlin burned to a crisp and so on, starvation, all kinds, then you understand, okay, this marvelous mechanism that brings water, to the kitchen, and you flip on a light, and the electricity comes on.
I know. Well, for me, and I suppose it's because I have somewhat of a depressive temperament. I mean, one thing that staggers me on a consistent basis is the fact that anything ever works. I mean, because it's so unlikely, to be in a situation where our electronic communications work, where our electric grid works, and it works all the time, right? It works 100% of the time, and the reason for that is that there are mostly men out there who are breaking themselves into pieces, repairing this thing, which just falls apart all the time.
Absolutely.
Right?
I said this in the Monk debate, okay, in Toronto several years ago. I said that there's the invisible, all these elitist, professors sneering at men. It's men who are maintaining everything around us. Okay, this invisible army, okay, which feminists don't notice. Right? Nothing would work if it weren't for the men.
Regarded as oppressive, which is, and like a professor is someone who's standing on a hill surrounded by a wall, which is surrounded by another wall, which is surrounded by another wall. Like it's walls all the way down. Who stands up there and says, I'm brave and independent? It's like you've got this protected area that's so unlikely. It's so absolutely unlikely. And the fact that people aren't on their knees in gratitude all the time for the fact that we have central heating and air conditioning and pure water and reliable food, it's just... It's
incredible.
It's absolutely unbelievable.
I mean, people used to die for the water supply, okay, was contaminated with cholera, for heaven's sakes, right? People don't understand, okay, they had to have clean water, fresh milk, fresh orange juice, all of these things. These are marvelous.
And all of the time.
All of the time. Western culture is heading, okay, because we are so dependent on this invisible infrastructure, we're heading for an absolute catastrophe when jihadists figure out how to paralyze the power grid. The entire culture will be chaotic. You'll have mobs in the street, okay? Within 3 days, okay? When suddenly the food supply is interrupted and there's no way to communicate. There'll be like a robbery. I mean, that is the way Western culture is going to collapse, okay? And it won't take much. It'll just
single
be a few
points
days.
Of failure.
Because we are so interconnected, and now we are so dependent on communications and computers.
All that the government should be doing right now is stress testing our infrastructure the same way they stress test the banks, because we're so full of these single points of failure and I think you're absolutely right. Luckily, we've been, what would you call, invaded by stupid terrorists instead of smart terrorists, because a smart terrorist could do an unbelievable amount of damage in a very short period of time. So, and it's just God's good graces that hasn't happened yet. And so,
and then what will happen is that it's the men, okay? The men will reconstruct civilization while the women cower in the houses and have the men go out and do all the dirty work. That's what's going to happen again. Only men will bring civilization back again.